Hey, you're here for your movie fix, so let's get right to it. Today we're talking about five, count them five, legitimately awesome Frank Grillo movies that are basically a must-see. Now, you may not know who Frank Grillo is, maybe you've heard the name and you can't place the face or vice versa, and if you fall into that category, this is a great introduction to some of great Frank Grillo's more impressive works, and we've saved the best for first because number five on this list is Wheelman. Now, Wheelman, as the name suggests, is about Frank Grillo is a driver, technically a getaway driver for the kind of underground mafia syndicate in the city of Philadelphia. And man, this movie is fast-paced, suspenseful, and intense right from the get-go. It just takes off from there. He basically starts out driving a getaway job for kind of a crew he's assigned to for that evening. And I don't want to tell you a whole lot more about that movie just so you can discover the film for yourself and experience it. But what I can tell you is this is probably Frank Grillo's best film. It's his best performance, in my opinion. He really owns the film and carries it as a leading man. And the other interesting thing about this film is it's all shot from the perspective of the car. So it's him driving, or you're either looking at him in the car or he's seeing what he's seeing from the car throughout the film. So it's a very creative, shrewd, ingenious way to present this film. And I also think this is probably the best getaway driver movie of this era. When it came out, there were a couple of other getaway driver movies, Baby Driver and Drive with Ryan Gosling. I think overall this is a superior film to those films. Now, you may see that as a bold cinematic statement, and I understand that. If you disagree, please feel free to comment. But again, I think this is the most complete getaway driver film, and it has, I believe, the most complete character arc, and Frank Grillo really makes that happen in this movie. I hope you check it out. Let's move on to number four on this list, Into the Ashes. Now, Into the Ashes is a film that didn't get a lot of attention when it came out, and it really hasn't since. In fact, I remember I really enjoyed this film, but I had to actually go back and look up the name because I couldn't remember the name of the movie. All I knew is it had Frank Grillo, and I really liked it. Now, I will tell you, Frank Grillo does play a bad guy in this movie. He's the screen villain. But the other thing I'll say is this movie's pretty dark. It's suspenseful. However, it does have a very tight script. It's well acted. It has an incredible supporting cast with JBD, James Badge Dale, and Luke Grimes is also in it, who does an equally phenomenal job in this film. But I will tell you, Frank Grillo, it probably plays one of the best screen villains of all time, in my opinion. And even though he's not in the entire movie, he really doesn't need to be, because just his suggested presence in the film ratchets the level of suspense so much that this is an incredible film. I don't want to tell you a whole lot more about it other than that, but so you can experience the film and discover it for yourself. But I hope you check out Into the Ashes. Again, kind of an obscure film that hasn't received a lot of attention, and I think that's because he plays, again, a villain, and at the time he was playing more like nice guy, heroic roles, so maybe that's why the studio didn't want as much attention on this one, but I hope you check it out. Let's go to number three on this list. It's called The Grey. Now, The Grey is a movie that centers upon a group of workers, kind of a work crew who works out in the wilderness, either in Canada or Alaska. I can't remember where exactly it's set, but they finished working out on a work crew kind of on an oil and gas pipeline area, and they're flying back after a work shift back to the mainland, and their plane has some problems along the way, and they become stranded, a group of them, in the Alaskan wilderness. And I don't want to tell you a whole lot more about this movie just so you can experience it and discover it for yourself, but I can tell you that this is a Liam Neeson star vehicle movie. It's based around him, but I can tell you this, Frank Grillo really steals the show in this movie. He's one of the best characters. This movie has an amazing cast, but Frank Grillo, man, he really kind of takes the spotlight in this, and I think part of the reason for that is that the type of work crew who goes and works out in these remote areas tend to work there because they don't fit in as well to a traditional, work setting. So they like to be kind of out in the sticks in remote areas, kind of away from people and away from your traditional work type of environment. So And that's why Frank Grillo is so good in this, because he really just takes the essence of one of those type of guys and puts it, it's just a role of perfection for Grillo. I will tell you, I talked with a guy once who used to work on one of these work crews, and he said, I always used to carry a weapon out there when I worked out there in the wilderness with all the wildlife. And you will see this movie's about these people kind of navigating not only the elements but also the wildlife in this picture. But this guy told me I didn't carry a weapon so much for the wildlife out there as I did for the other guys I was working with. And man, Frank Grillo really takes that. He's a rough, tough, tough and rough around the edges guy in this movie. And this is one of his best performances. He makes this movie, The Gray, worth the price of admission. I hope you check it out. Let's go to number 2 on our list. It's called Warrior. Now, Warrior is about a guy, another actor in this film, Joel Edgerton, who is planning to fight in an MMA tournament, to see. He works as a teacher, but he wants to try to win this local MMA tournament, and he asked Frank Grillo to be his trainer for the fight. Now, I don't want to tell you a whole lot more about this movie other than that, so you can experience it, discover the movie for yourself, but I will tell you, this is another incredible Frank Grillo performance. Frank Grillo does have a background in fighting, both jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, so you can see how comfortable he is in this role. He brings an easiness and likability to this character because of his fighting background, I believe, and just really ties the movie together. This movie has a great cast. It's got Joel Edgerton, as I said, Tom Hardy, Nick Nolte. It's truly one of the best films I've seen in the last 10 to 15 years, and Frank Grillo is a big part of that. In fact, this movie, Warrior, came out about the same time as The Gray, and it really put Frank Grillo on the map in Hollywood with these two performances that came out, I believe, the same year, and it put Hollywood on notice, and it sure got him a lot more work and a various number of projects moving forward. But that brings us to our last movie on the list, number 1, Purge, The Purge, Anarchy. Now, this is the second installment in the Purge franchise. I said Purge franchise, that's pretty funny, but the Purge franchise, it was the second installment, and man, Frank Grillo really took the franchise in a good direction with this. I will tell you, if you don't know a lot about the Purge movies, these are kind of dark horror thriller type movies of that genre, and just be aware of that before you watch it. But Frank Grillo, interestingly, in this film, initially, he kind of goes out to be on the wrong side of what many consider the wrong side of being on the Purge, but you can see the arc his character takes in this film. He turns out to be a leading man, a hero, and it really solidified Frank Grillo as an action hero in this particular film franchise. And much like Ethan Hawke lent his star power to the first Purge movie, Frank Grillo does it for this one, and it's really one of my favorite films and one of my favorite films in the Purge franchise. But you might disagree with me about the kind of ranking of these of these Frank Grillo films, or you may think that there should be other movies on this list that I excluded. Now, that's fine. Feel free to disagree. That's why we talk movies, and we appreciate you being here, and we'll see you for the next one.